Iowa educators who are supporting me in this campaign. We're rolling that out today, too, in addition to this education speech. I'm very proud to have their support. And let me just say to all of you, if there's anybody in the room who hasn't already agreed to caucus for me, I'm asking for you to caucus for me. I actually can't think of a better place to talk about education than right here in the state of Iowa and here at Brody Middle School. You have so many great schools here, thanks to the hard work of your teachers, the devotion of your parents, and the support of your communities. Education is an issue, probably like many of you, that's enormously personal. You know, I grew up in a small town, a rural town in North Carolina, actually South Carolina, Georgia, and North Carolina. My family didn't have a lot of money, but my parents worked hard to put food on the table and put a roof over our heads. And they told us if we worked hard at school, there was nothing we couldn't do. And in the classroom, I had heroic public school teachers who taught me exactly the same thing. I had teachers who cared about me, who took an interest in my life, and who taught me the skills I needed to succeed. My high school teacher, you can clap for teachers, that's good. Teacher, Miss Burns, who I remember very well, made me believe that somebody from this little town in North Carolina, where their father worked in a textile mill, could do anything if they worked hard and did the right things. Teachers like Miss Burns, good public schools, and the chance to go to college made all the difference in my own life. Looking back, I see everything that gave to me. All the lessons, all the knowledge, and all the experiences can really be boiled down to three things that every child in America should get out of their public education. Number one, the preparation they need to enter the world of work. Yes! 2, the opportunity to attend college. And 3, the tools they need to become an active member of the community. My education provided them with all these things. And every child deserves to have the same chance that I've had. But today, millions of young people don't get that chance. In America, children who live in the right zip code get the best education our country has to offer, while children who live in rural and low-income areas often face an uphill battle. In America today, 2 schools separated by a 5-minute drive can be miles apart in the quality of the education that they give to the children who go there. More than a half century after Brown versus Board of Education, we still have 2 school systems in America, separate and unequal. There are nearly 1,000 high schools where more than half of the students will not graduate. They're called dropout factors. 12th graders from low-income families read at the same level as 9th graders from middle-class families. Students in rural areas are much more likely not to be enrolled in school or employed than students in other areas of the country. Just 12% of African-American 4th graders are proficient in reading, while only 9% of Latino 8th graders are proficient in math. We often hear these success stories about people who have beaten the odds. Those stories are inspiring, they should be inspiring for all of us. But we have to ask ourselves, why are the odds so stacked against so many just because of where they're born? Being born in America should give every child the leg up that they need. But today that is not the case, and this has to change. Being born in America also should give our children a leg up in the global economy. But today that's not the case either. In the 21st century, a student here at Brody Middle School isn't just competing with students in Cedar Rapids or Minneapolis. When they enter the workforce, they'll be competing with students in Beijing and New Delhi. Although they were born with all the natural ability they need to be successful, too many of our students will enter that competition without the skills that they need. 1 out of 29 countries ranked in a recent study, this is a startling number. Out of 28 countries ranked, the U.S. came in 24th in math achievement, between Hungary and Cyprus. We ranked 24th in problem solving, 18th in science, and 15th in reading. If we fail, our students fall behind and we all lose ground as a nation. The American century was built on the skills and knowledge of American workers, trained by one of the best education systems in the world. If we want this 21st century to be an American century as well, our workforce will need to have the skills to successfully compete against global economic powers like China and India. And today, we are failing to equip them with those skills. We can meet these challenges. All across the country, schools and teachers are achieving extraordinary results, even with the most challenging groups of children. I've seen some of these schools myself in my travels around the country. And my education plan is based on these examples, on the best practices of what works and what does not work in the real world. There are three simple pillars to my proposal. First, every child should be prepared to succeed when they show up in the classroom. Second, every classroom should be led by an excellent teacher. And third, every teacher should work in an outstanding school. These three principles should guide our reform. And let me be clear about one thing. Fixing our public schools will require more funding. It's absolutely critical. But we also need to understand that funding alone is not the answer. We also need reform. And when it comes to reform, I got a good place to start. How about if we radically overhaul No Child Left Behind? No Child Left Behind is actually a case study in the broken system in Washington, D.C. The system has looked the other way as its failed policies and incompetent leadership have broken our schools and broken the spirits of our children and our teachers. When it comes to education, instead of solutions, the Bush administration gave us slogans. Instead of funding, they gave us photo ops. Instead of reform, they gave us Halliburton-style cronyism at the Department of Education, doling out no-bid contracts for programs like Reading First to their buddies and paying off pundits like Armstrong and Williams. And instead of working together with teachers and schools, they took a needlessly punitive, arbitrary, and harsh approach to the genuine needs of our schools. They also pushed false solutions like private schools and school vouchers. Let me be very clear about something. Draining resources from our public schools will not help our public schools. All vouchers are is a sign of George Bush's insincerity when it comes to fixing our public schools. And it's because of this insincerity and this incompetence that now NCLB has lost all credibility with the teachers and principals who actually are needed to make it work. They do not believe it evaluates schools fairly or that it helps the schools that need it. And without the support of millions of well-meaning, hard-working educators, it's hard to see how any reform can succeed. Some say we should repeal No Child Left Behind, but whether we change the name is less important than whether we change the policy. As president, I will radically overhaul this law. I'll keep the principles that work and get rid of the principles that don't. The first pillar of any education policy is to ensure that every child is prepared to succeed when they show up in the classroom, which I spoke about just a minute ago. Sadly, children from poor families who most need high-quality preschool are the least likely to get it. As president, I'll launch a national Great Promise partnership to give quality early childhood education to every 4-year-old in the country, starting with children in poor neighborhoods with struggling schools. And we also have to start younger than 4 years of age. I'll create a national Smart Start program, which is based on North Carolina's successful initiative and Iowa's Early Childhood Iowa program. They'll raise the quality of child care and make it more affordable to improve children's health. If you were judging by the Bush administration's approach to education, you'd think that tests teach students in their later years, where they don't. As a friend of mine from Virginia has said, you know, you don't make a hog fatter by waiting. I have to admit to my friends in Iowa, when I use that line in other places, I sometimes get blank looks. What is that boy from North Carolina talking? Teachers, not tests, are the single most important factor in successful schools. That's why the second pillar of my education reform plan is to ensure that every classroom is led by a good teacher. I'm willing to bet that each of you remember the names of great teachers who made a difference in your life. I sure do. Myself, I mentioned Miss Burns, who was my high school English teacher. Every child in America deserves to have a teacher like her. Not so that we can talk about the fond memories years later when we're running for president, but so every child in America can have a chance to run for president, to be anything that they want to be.